Story 1. I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions of years before I was born and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Mark Twain. Story 2. What I believe is that nothing happens after death. When you die, your brain stops and you are gone. It's over. What I wish would happen is the chance to watch over my loved ones. Story 3. Everything else continues, but I am not present. There are regions of space-time in which I do not exist. The 19th century, the moon in 2025, and after I am gone. Story 4. I always wonder about this. Now that I'm 40, married, with 2 kids and a dog, I think about the Earth's billion-year history and the time during which humans have roamed the planet. I consider how, during the brief period between the 20th and 21st centuries, I got to live a life alongside others who were also chosen to experience that same era. My friends, my family, my colleagues, and celebrities, all of us were selected for this tiny blip on the timeline. I sometimes wonder what comes next, but I am incredibly thankful for everything I have received, especially my husband, a person I truly believe was meant to share this journey with me. Story 5. I don't know, but it's probably the most exciting thing left to discover. There is nothing, we are at peace. There is something, and it will be nice to find out what. Story 6. I believe that infinitely more powerful entities than myself exist somewhere. I think their capabilities are beyond quantum. This means that when you die, they may either let you choose what happens or there is much more already planned that I cannot comprehend. Either way, I am here to experience and prepare for life, not for death. Story 7. I was pronounced dead for a brief period before being resuscitated. Everything felt white. It was as if everything and nothing was happening at once. I am not sure if that makes sense. I had an auditory experience where I seemed to hear the voices of my ancestors and my future descendants, but that is the only thing I remember vividly. Story 8. Similar to dying stars, red giants and supernovae disperse various atoms that may be reused in the formation of other stars and planets. Our decaying remains, including cremated remains, eventually release atoms back into the soil, water, and air. Those tiny atoms may contribute to the development of flora and fauna. These cycles continue until the end of the universe, but that is an entirely different topic. Story 9. The intermediary state eventually leads to the day of judgment, culminating in our final abode in heaven or hell. Story 10. Once your brain activity stops, the conscious being that was you is gone forever. How could it be otherwise? I have never understood the idea that a disembodied spirit or soul could continue without the body. What would that even be? Ideas about an afterlife are just wishful thinking. Make the best of the years you have here on earth. Story 11. Believing and confessing that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior will allow me to be saved and enter heaven. Story 12. I believe that, as you approach the end, you slip into an endless trance or dream. Your consciousness slows down to the point that, from your perspective, you approach your death. Whatever you personally believe about an afterlife will become your new, eternal reality. Story 13. The people who love us will miss us. For the dead, there is nothing. There is no darkness or eternal nothingness. Everything ends at death. Story 14. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. I believe our consciousness is transferred into something else, but I am not sure what it is. Story 15. The best way to think about it, regardless of your beliefs, is to hope for a reunification with family and friends. It allows you to relive your happiest moments and best memories while creating new ones with those you cherish. In the best case, it's true, and in the worst case, it's not. There is no downside to the comfort you would feel while waiting for death. Story 16. I am assuming nothing but won't know for sure until after I take the plunge, hopefully years from now. If there is something, I will get back to you. Story 17. Based on my personal experiences of witnessing paranormal, near-death, and supernatural occurrences, it feels like there is something significant happening. Whether you want to call it a simulation or a higher power, I have explored various beliefs, being religious, an atheist, and even a Satanist. I have a sound mind, and I am certainly not here to convince or convert anyone to any belief system. I have seen shadows in broad daylight and experienced demonic possession several times. including instances resembling the portrayals in Hollywood with blackened eyes and inhumane expressions full of hate. I have found myself in life-threatening situations where orbs of light appeared. I even experienced an out-of-body moment, during which I witnessed my own body, and I explained this to an ex-girlfriend who corroborated everything I described while panicking beside my body. I could share much more. It is something I have struggled with. I should share it with more people, perhaps by uploading a video or something similar. It might help someone. Story 18. I am certain we are all in a simulation, so I would assume waking up from it would mean either going back to redo everything or doing something different. Story 19. For me, nothing. It will be the same as before I was born. I think it is possible that, given I showed up once, and if time is infinite, I might show up again at some point. Me does not mean me as I am now, but I might have some kind of subjective consciousness again, though if I do, it would not really be me, and I would not remember my present life. It might even be trillions of years from now in a different universe, and I probably would not be human. I do not know, but it is an interesting thought. It is a naturalistic reincarnation idea based on the possibility that time is infinite. Essentially, it happened once, so maybe I will show up again. Story 20. I know there is more, and there really isn't one specific thing that can happen. Many different things can occur. In the best-case scenario, you will reach the core of your own mind and create your own worlds from there, which other people can experience after they die. Story 21. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. I used to think this was just an abstract idea until I realized it is an actual philosophical theory. I personally love the concept. The only reason we exist in our current form is that every atom and molecule aligned in exactly the right way. If the universe is truly infinite and cyclical, then eventually everything would align again, leading to the same choices, outcomes, and lives being repeated. What makes this idea so compelling is that it allows fate and free will to coexist. We shape our own heavens and hells, even if we are destined to repeat them. Story 22. Your soul travels to another realm and lives a new life there. Same nature, different nurture. Then, when they die in that world, your soul experiences it all again until the very end of this infinite multiverse. At least, that is what I believe for no particular reason. Story 23. 0. I didn't exist before I was made, and I won't after. No fairy tale nonsense. If I'm wrong, then I will find out. If I'm right, I won't. Story 24. Nothing. It's probably just infinite blackness. I don't think anything comes afterward. Death is final. Permanent end. Story 25. I think nothing, but I like to imagine I can re-roll my stats and start again. Like a new Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Next time, I want to try being a cat. Story 26. Greg Giraldo. We have a whole religion based on a girl who really stuck to her story. Bill Burr. Do you remember before you were born? No? Yeah, it's just like that. Story 27. I believe in God, heaven, and hell. However, even if I did not believe in God, I would still feel there is something after this life where our spirit resides. Story 28. The end of your individual ego experience is like the pruning of the end of a branch of a very large tree. Story 29. Life as a spirit exists for those who believe in it. I also believe that for those who think there is nothing, there will be nothing. Story 30. I hope there is something to continue to, otherwise life is just too sad. I try to think about the logistics of the afterlife, but I don't really see it. Story 31. I think it is just nothing. As hard as it is to believe for some people, I truly believe that it is just nothing. What is there before birth? Nothing. Or maybe it is like being a ghost. Story 32. I believe that nothing happens after death. The brain gradually shuts down, and consciousness fades away completely. Story 33. It is similar to falling asleep without realizing it and not remembering your dreams, except you do not wake up to notice. Story 34. Death is the final train stop. Get off on one side to go to hell. Get off on the other side for heaven. Both are for eternity. After 1,000,000 years, it's only the beginning. Story 35. You unplug from the earth human, 21st Century Edition game and get your score. I wouldn't recommend the Medieval Challenge. It's not much fun unless you have the Lord and King's downloadable content. Story 36. It would be an interesting concept if you returned with your memory wiped and started fresh. Since no one can rule it out, we could have lived 100 lives already. Story 37. I believe that whatever occurs when you go to sleep is essentially what happens when you die. For me, there is nothing. It's just darkness with no dreams or lucid experiences. I see no difference between sleeping and what one might call eternal sleep. Story 38. It is one of those things that the mind is incapable of imagining. It cannot comprehend the concept of its own non-existence. Story 39. Whatever existed before birth is beyond comprehension. Honestly, I would prefer that to an infinite life by a long shot. I would rather not float around in an endless void after the heat death of the universe for all eternity. Story 40. Life. If there is nothing after death, our life here on Earth will be meaningless and devoid of purpose. Story 41. Well, there is stiffening of the corpse and the gradual evacuation of bodily fluids, followed by gradual decomposition or cremation, depending on your choice. Story 42. I think there are enough anecdotes about ghosts to believe in them. I'm not saying anything about heaven, just that ghosts exist after you die. I want to be a fully functional ghost with all my senses and mental abilities intact. I would love to haunt people who stay indoors, watch television series, and read comics all day. Story 43. I can't imagine there being nothing, simply because I believe in physics. Nothing is created nor destroyed. Perhaps our energy lives on in a different form, whether it is in heaven, hell, reincarnation, or rebirth. Story 44. These are the mysteries of life. I am convinced there has to be more, but I cannot imagine what it might be. I will find out eventually or not. Whatever it is, once we are born, we are committed to seeing it through. There is no way off this ride because it probably doesn't end here. Story 45. I believe the spirit will travel to a higher dimensional state and exist there until it can connect to another bodily form. I am not certain if that body is human, animal, or even a part of this earth. I intuitively feel that our souls never cease to exist. They simply wander between their true higher dimensional state and a lower dimensional form that resembles the life we know. Story 46. Death is just another path that we all must take. The gray rain curtain of this world is rolled back, and all turns to silver glass. Then you see it. White shores and beyond. A far green country under a swift sunrise. Story 47. The same state as pre-birth. Though I would love to spend eternity in my own imagination. Or, even better, I would love to spend eternity bouncing from my imagination to others. Story 48. Why does anyone believe that something comes after? It is all delusional. We no longer exist. Our brains cannot process stimuli anymore. It has to be exactly like before we were born, and there is no reason to think anything comes after that. Story 49. The idea of ghosts is nearly universal across all cultures, and I believe there is significance in that. Story 50. We return to the source of consciousness and become one with everything. Our individuality fades until all or part of us is used again for another soul in a different timeline. Story 51. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will never see the light of day, outnumber the grains of sand in Arabia. Certainly, those unborn individuals include greater poets than John Keats and scientists greater than Isaac Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the face of these astonishing odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, who are here. We privileged few, who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we complain at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred? Story 52. Nothing. Yes, it is terrifying and nihilistic to contemplate how we transition into nothingness for eternity. Humanity has created fairy tales and imaginary figures to ease our angst. Story 53. I'm old and know a whole lot more dead people than living ones, so I can tell you from personal experience that what happens after death is a funeral. As Porky Pig says at the end of cartoons, "That's all, folks." Story 54. I didn't realize how popular the nothing answer would be. I agree, but I would have thought there would be more of a divide among people who believe in some form of an afterlife. Story 55. What if your perception of time slows to a halt just before the moment of death, making it seem like you are living in eternity? Probably nothing, though. Story 56. I did salvia once, and I swear I died. I was sucked into the other side through a shadow by mechanical figures, feeling profoundly that I should not be there yet. They were devoid of all emotion, but I wasn't. It was overwhelmingly sad and full of grief. I was on the other side of reality, watching my life on repeat. It was a lot like the movie Interstellar when the character went inside the black hole, though there was regret for no longer being able to touch that other side. Maybe that changes when I'm also mechanical after death. Maybe I'm going to an unfavorable place. Whatever it is, I just hope I'm okay with it when it comes my way. Story 57. Great to hear everyone's thoughts. However, if energy can neither be created nor destroyed, where does all the energy from our body go? Story 58. The universe is a creation of temporary escape. Not existing is impossible. Death is an illusion. This life gives your consciousness a break from the fact that existence is all there is, a moment to forget there is no divine presence and no way out. The meaning of life. I think I'll go play virtual reality. Story 59. Such a boring response. Nothing. I like to imagine that when you die, you are born on some alien planet, either in this universe or another. You could even be born into a different time period or reincarnated as a random deep-sea creature. I believe you are born to die. Something magical must happen on the other side. Story 60. We are highly functioning beings. There is nothing beyond this life. We live and we die, and that is the end. It may seem depressing, but that is simply the reality. Story 61. It's death all the way down. You are not an immortal being. You are a pattern, and the components that make up your body and mind are only temporarily arranged in that pattern. Eventually, they will become part of other patterns. It's like asking where the shadow puppet goes when you move your hands away from the light source. Story 62. This would be better phrased as, people who have died and come back. What is on the other side? From my experience of nearly choking to death, it is a peaceful nothingness, just darkness. It is not exactly dying, but it is close enough. Story 63. The bioelectrical energy that constitutes the human spirit or psyche crosses over to another plane of reality, and then you continue smoking marijuana on the other side. Story 64. Nothing. Not an endless dark void. Just nothing. Consciousness is nothing but an electrochemical reaction in the nervous system. When the nervous system dies, so does the person. No afterlife, no heaven, no hell. Just nothing. The person ceases to exist. Story 65. 2 of the top voted comments suggest we return to the same state as before we were born or conceived. I'll just add George Carlin to the mix. We are just a bag of garbage. Story 66. If you are interested in this subject, consider exploring a website where thousands of individuals have shared their near-death experiences. Many of the accounts are remarkably consistent. People describe sensations of floating out of their bodies, encountering a bright light, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace or love, and occasionally meeting loved ones or spiritual beings. Some even report experiencing a life review, reliving moments from their lives through the perspective of others. What is striking is the similarity of these stories, regardless of the individual's backgrounds or beliefs. This has led me to question whether death is truly the end. Story 67. I believe we cease to exist, and the energy that once powered us returns to the universe, dispersing among everything else. However, there is no consciousness involved. Story 68. It seems to me that the most likely answer is what we are currently experiencing. What are the odds that, throughout all of time, we are alive for the first and only time? The most probable explanation appears to be that we have died before and will die again. Thankfully, we are not burdened by the weight of all that memory. Story 69, we would be somewhere similar to where we are on this planet. Perhaps we would be on a different planet. Before birth, we did not know that such a world exists, but it does, and we are here. Therefore, after death, we would also be somewhere. Story 70. I would like there to be a question and answer section where we can ask random things about the world, such as what dinosaurs really looked like, or more personal questions like whether anyone had a crush on me in high school. Story 71. Hopefully, it will be the same as before I was born. Nothing. I think my worst nightmare might be getting reincarnated as another human. What if life is just a loop, and I am forever myself in different time periods but with no recollection? What if I die and am forced to relive this life? I simply do not want to exist. I imagine it being like general anesthesia, not even blackness because you aren't thinking so you can't perceive blackness. I like that. Story 72. You are an assortment of proteins. When you die, the electricity and enzymes that sustain these proteins cease. The proteins denature and break down, while the worms complete the process. Dying is not the end. It is a transition. You go from being a person to only having a physical body. What remains of you is solely up to those who did not die. All that lasts is your memory. Will you leave this world with a good name? Story 73. A long line of people is waiting to enter the next life, as their concept of an afterlife has proved to be dull. Story 74. Peace. Answers. Everything and nothing at the same time. Your consciousness fades, but your soul attains eternal peace from the constraints of the human mind and body. I believe we become one with the universe. Story 75. That's like asking where the story goes when a book is finished, or where a candle flame goes after you blow it out, where a raindrop goes after it lands in the ocean. Story 76. Yes, I believe there is life after death. In my culture, we burn the body and spread the ashes into the sea. Part of us becomes one with the sea. Story 77. I honestly have no idea. What I do know is that we live in a universe that wastes nothing. The oxygen we breathe was created in the heart of a dying star, as is everything we can see and touch, including ourselves. Nothing is ever destroyed in this universe. It is simply transformed into something else. That knowledge helps me not to fear death as much as I used to. Story 78. Imagine how unjust it would be if there were no afterlife, no punishment for those who committed atrocities, and no reward for those who did good. That would be truly scary. Story 79. I believe our energy returns to the source from which it came before birth. It embodies eternal peace and love, free from the worries and stresses that life brings, while also existing in a different form. Story 80. There was something before you and there will be something after you. But if you mean consciousness, it does not exist. Your soul is gone, but your human remains exist in this universe. These return to their original form, such as nutrients like nitrogen and potassium. The soil allows you to grow back alive, but as a plant. Plants, in turn, support other living organisms, such as animals, with the help of air and food. Then some animals eat each other, and the same cycle continues until the end of the world. After the explosion of the Earth, all this matter travels through the universe, and who knows what happens next. Imagine if, by some miraculous luck, all this were to be reborn again millions of years later, and your mother gives birth to you again, but neither she nor you remembers anything about the past. It is just a new beginning, and you might make the same mistakes again, but that next life will probably be completely different from now. So, if that were to happen, there might not be a new Earth, but who knows? I hope there is something more than just emptiness. Story 81. It's hard sometimes to feel the truth. I think staring into the void is a slippery slope. We can all get so comfortable with darkness and emptiness that we become hypnotized by it and start holding it as ultimate. While it may be true that on the edge of life there is darkness all around, and through it we all must go, we should carefully remember that we know nothing of what lies beyond. Death is not a homogeneous experience. Who is to say it is? Who is to call it either the same or different? There is more to it than life can know, that is for sure. The greatest arrogance is deciding where our end lies when we know nothing even about our beginning. I know one thing for sure. If a person holds their belief to be the ultimate truth, their belief in nothingness will come to haunt them. For whatever created us gave us freedom and loves us so that our choices can come true. Be mindful of your weaknesses and blindness. They make us all arrogant, and the greatest success of evil is not in making us damned, but in making us damn ourselves. Story 82. If there is nothing after death and nothing before, given that my life is so short compared to the clockwork of the universe, it feels like there is a 0% chance this moment I am experiencing would be happening right now while I am conscious. The whole situation feels meaningless, but if it is really true that this quick blink of existence is all you get, that is wild. It seems more likely that this entity, whatever it is that I am, which is conscious and experiencing anything at all, lasts forever in some way. Why does it exist now, and why am I specifically tied to this brain and not anyone else? Story 83. Something we don't understand is the concept of just pure nothing, or heaven and hell or reincarnation. It is absurdly simplistic. These ideas are merely basic methods of coping with the reality that we have no idea what happens after death. To me, that's exciting. Obviously, it is likely that this current version of myself won't be in a position to appreciate it, but I welcome it regardless. Story 84. While I am encouraged to see many atheists and agnostics, I wish there was more emphasis on the value of our influence, which is far more important than the memory of our existence. Story 85. Your soul transforms into energy and travels back to the edge of the planet until the cycle resumes. Story 86. Well, there has to be more than this. I have had so many experiences with my brother and those who have passed. We are made of energy, and energy never dies. We move to a different plane, a different form, but we go on. We have to keep coming back here and learn the lessons until we reach an unknown destination. We have all lived before. That's why sometimes you meet someone and it creates a natural good vibe, while at other times we might instantly dislike someone. This is because we have experienced many lives. The important people you interact with will play a part in the next life. Try to be kind to others and to ourselves, and in the next life the lessons will correspond. There will always be lessons because we are spiritual beings, and this is one big Earth school. Story 87. You can test this scientifically with a swimming pool and a qualified but temporarily distracted lifeguard. Story 88. I hope we can understand all the knowledge in the universe, including everything that has happened, as well as how and why the universe was created and the purpose of our existence. Or at least, I seek confirmation of my beliefs. Story 89. I don't know if we'll ever have a definite answer about existence. The thought of ceasing to exist terrifies me. At the same time, I am not religious and was raised that way. I have no concept of an afterlife and do not want to associate with a religion I do not identify with to ease that fear. So, I do my best in this life and try not to dwell. Whatever happens will happen regardless. Story 90. It doesn't matter what I think. Nobody really knows. What I hope for is some sort of continuation and a reunion with loved ones. But who knows? Story 91. There is no evidence of life or nothingness after death. We cannot bring evidence from another world with a brain designed for this one. Even if we experienced something and returned, it is likely we would not remember or be able to conceive and describe it. It is similar to trying to remember a dream. We may feel that we experienced it, but upon waking, it becomes difficult to remember or accurately describe. Story 92. High chance of nothing. On the outside chance we get to roll and go again, well, all right then, but I doubt it. Story 93. It's a simulation, more like a matrix, as confirmed by CIA whistleblower Matthew Brown in Part 3 of his interview on the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. So either we'll get to see a game over or a continue. Screen. Story 94. Does it matter? There's no way of knowing. Maybe nothing. Probably nothing, at least as far as your sense of self is concerned. If you want to wax poetic, perhaps the energy that represents yourself enters the earth or the universe, combines, and becomes something new. However, it won't be you anymore, right? But it will still be a part of you. Honestly, I am okay with impermanence. It gives life meaning. Eternity sounds horrible. Story 95. I believe you may experience this again. It seems that awareness does not fade away like the ego does. You might not be aware of this because you cease to exist. However, whatever we are when we first open our eyes to life, that awareness does not diminish. Whatever it is, I believe that is our true essence, and I think it endures. Story 96. What if I told you that I could arrange your reincarnation in your next life? And you could even choose your species? For $10,000, I will make it happen, money back guarantee. If you are not a handsome Squidward or whatever in your next life, come find me. Story 97. You are simply set to an off state. The concepts of heaven or hell will exist in that short time as your body shuts down. The joy or misery you feel in those final moments might be the last thing you remember. Then it's nothing. You are shut down and nothing exists for you. Story 98. We are a mass of atoms, and we will become free atoms when we pass. Will our souls transition to another plane of existence? Only death knows. I am in no hurry to die. Story 99. Maybe the more important question is what it means to live a finite life as a conscious collection of atoms that can think, in an infinite universe with infinite time. Story 100. You stomp on an ant. What happens to it? Why are we any different? If there is a conceptual deity or deities out there, our human brains may not be able to comprehend. Story 101. I believe we return to our deity form and swirl around in source energy until we decide to experience the physical plane again as someone else. It's not the whole you. It's like slipping a finger into a glove. Before we enter, we make contracts with other souls who are incarnating, agreeing to either help us along the way or provide us with painful or challenging experiences that we need to heal from. The process of healing allows for expansion, which is the purpose of physical life. Growth through experiencing different perspectives. Story 102. We have our souls recycled because an extraterrestrial race that built the moon possesses a device that prevents us from reaching the next stage of existence. We are unable to perceive beyond the third dimension. These aliens feed off our negative emotions like a drug for sustenance. We are destined to be endlessly recycled, enduring suffering on Earth repeatedly as a subservient race. Story 103. There are only two choices. Either there is an afterlife or there isn't. Most people clearly believe there isn't. For millennia, humans have tended to believe in some form of afterlife. This nihilism is new and is reflected in our cultures and lives. Story 104. At first, whatever chaotic thoughts your mind generates before it actually dies, and then the same state you were in before you were born. Story 105. You can prevent becoming a Discord moderator by exercising, eating healthier, and practicing good hygiene. Story 106. There is no death. You are everyone and everything. The living universe is a giant entity experiencing all aspects of existence. You are a perception that believes it is separate. This belief is essential for the experience to function. In reality, you are a part of the larger whole, the universal entity. Plants, insects, humans, animals, and extraterrestrial life are all you. You do not die. Story 107. Another life after death is how people cope with the belief that there is nothing. Our lives can vary from wonderful and fulfilling to absolute poverty and sadness. I wish we lived in a world where what people did mattered now and for future generations, not based on what a group of individuals from thousands of years ago deceived us about. Story 108. I hope there is an afterlife, and I am relying on the Christian belief. Otherwise, life feels utterly pointless, and we should all consider ending it early to avoid the hassle. Unless you genuinely enjoy life, then I suppose you do what makes you happy. Story 109. Read the Bible. It presents a vague picture of the afterlife, which is contingent upon living a prerequisite life now. Otherwise, once you die, you are simply dead. Story 110. I have experienced many strange things in my life that I cannot explain. I do not intend to pretend that I know what will happen after I die. Perhaps nothing will happen, or maybe we move to a higher dimension of existence, or we may find ourselves in purgatory for an unknown duration. Story 111. My rational self says nothing. We are biological machines, and when our power is shut off, we go to the same place my computer goes when I turn it off. My emotional self still feels that consciousness is not a physical phenomenon and that our souls existed before our bodies did. We choose to be incarnated into a body to experience things that can only be understood in a physical form. It is like playing a video game, except we are not allowed to know we are playing a game because that would ruin the illusion. When we incarnate, our attributes are randomly assigned: physical traits, intellectual capacity, personality, and the location of our birth. Perhaps this is to learn or grow as a soul, or maybe it is just for the experience itself. When one dies, they leave the simulation and return to being what they were: a disembodied soul that cannot experience physical sensations. This concept resonates with me, but it is ultimately pointless because it doesn't provide guidance on what to do in life other than to appreciate it for what it is. Perhaps be kind to those who have rolled poorly, because that could be you the next time you play. There are elements of Buddhism and even Mormonism, such as the veil of ignorance and the idea that our souls choose to enter the world in particular ways. I have been an atheist for most of my life and was briefly a fundamental Christian, even planning to become a preacher and delivering multiple sermons. Part of me really wants to believe in something beyond this material world. I dual majored in philosophy and psychology in college because I wanted to understand more about the mind, consciousness, and reality. What it ultimately taught me is that even if there is something beyond this world, we can never know or prove it. Some people have the capability to choose a belief while others cannot, and that difference is largely driven by personality. It seems like that is another attribute assigned at birth, whether one has the tendency to believe in things without proof or not. I apologize for being long-winded and for going back and forth. I started experiencing complex migraines in my 40s, where I cannot read or speak correctly. It was initially diagnosed as a stroke. That experience has made me even more certain that we are just biological machines. Story 112, The Other Side. This is a world of tests, and that is the world we strive for. It is the place that tells you if you passed your life test or failed, and it decides your final eternal destination based on that. Story 113. I have read several posts over the years from people who experienced clinical death or near-death situations. They described it as a warm nothingness, and I find some comfort in that. Story 114. I think our existence will cease, but the truth is that on the day we die, many people will be born. These new births are also new manifestations of consciousness with a new subjective experience. I am not saying there will be a connection to me after I die and this new birth, but I like to believe that I will carry on in an endless recycling. Story 115. On the Shotgun forums, it used to be that every 2 weeks someone would post asking for recommendations for a budget over and under shotgun. That is not possible anymore. It's like looking for cheap brain surgery. There are issues if you go too cheap. About once a month, someone on Reddit posts a similar topic. It often turns into a post bashing a public figure, as people love to join in. I am a religious person and don't feel like promoting my beliefs, but I believe the viewpoints of those who say, the same as before you were born, or nothing, do not fully consider some after-death experiences. Some of these experiences are similar across cultures. There is even a very small number of people I have met who claim to have memories from before birth, and their accounts also share cross-cultural similarities. Story 116. I have always believed in heaven and hell. I never believed in reincarnation, but I would love for that to be real. Starting a whole new life after each death, even if you do not realize it, just sounds fascinating to me. Story 117. The theory that this is a simulation would be fascinating if you die, and they remove the helmet from your actual body and ask you, so how was it? You could respond, let me try again. Story 118. We don't know, and there's no way to know. The most likely answer is nothing. It would be nice if there were more, but wanting something to be true doesn't make it true. Story 119. I think that we go home. That can mean a lot of things. For the purely secular, it can mean the decomposition process returns us to the elements we are built from, and those elements are then used again in a grand web of ecological interconnectivity. For the dogmatically religious, it can mean returning to the arms of Jesus or a similar figure in the specific case of Christianity. Personally, I don't know if there's any spark of consciousness or identity left after death. There may not be, but if there is one, I like to think that it returns to wherever that energy originally came from, and in that place we experience a profound connection to all of creation. Subsumed into everything and everyone else, but with just enough of our individuality remaining to appreciate the experience. Maybe that's just a fantasy, but it's general enough that it doesn't change how I live my life or compel me to control the lives of others. And it brings me hope and helps me accept my inevitable mortality. Story 120. The Bardo is for cleansing, dream state reevaluation, and a lot of literally incomprehensible and unknown experiences, followed by reincarnation. It is uncertain where, with whom, or how this occurs. Like it or not, you must return to work. Story 121. The same as before birth? I don't believe there is anything. This is still hard to comprehend sometimes, but I don't believe we will have any form of consciousness at all. Story 122. I believe your soul continues to exist. The universe is too vast and infinite for physical death to be the end. I genuinely believe my family members who have passed before me are somewhere in the ether, preparing for others to arrive. Story 123. According to C.S. Lewis, there will be a significant revealing of what your soul has truly become, either a soul growing in joy and reality in the presence of its maker or one that has chosen separation from him through a lifetime of rejection, as portrayed perfectly in The Great Divorce. Story 124. I'd like to think that after I die, I'll know everything. I hope to understand how everything came to be and perhaps witness the first civilizations on Earth, ultimately grasping the mysteries of the universe. Of course, this is just wishful thinking, influenced by some philosophical ideas that emphasize the oneness of all existence. These philosophies suggest that we are the universe becoming aware of the ultimate truth and reality, having shed our material identities, and realizing that we are everything that ever was, that is, and will ever be. I believe this is something truly worth looking forward to. Story 125. Here are the key points I've learned from studying my own version of spiritualism and listening to many near-death experiences. We are usually greeted by a loved one or a spirit guide who creates an environment we are comfortable in. Then, we go through a life review where we feel the impact of our actions and words on others with great intensity, essentially judging ourselves. We also learn the reasons behind the mysteries and questions of our lives, realizing that we created our own lives before we were born. Depending on our karma, we can choose to reincarnate on this planet, experience life in various forms elsewhere in the universe, or remain in spirit form. Personally, I would refuse to be reincarnated on this planet again if given the choice. I seek long-term peace in another part of the universe, away from the struggles here. Additionally, I no longer believe in an eternal hell. I cannot comprehend why I believed such ideas for so long. A temporary life on Earth will never equate to eternal damnation. So, do not live your life in fear of a supposed hell. Story 126. I had stage 4 cancer and was unconscious for a long time during surgery and recovery. I don't remember anything, but I do recall being in the hospital after seeing bright lights and other objects. This was likely due to the large dosage of morphine I was on. Story 127. I don't know, but if it's anything like that warm sensation between sleep and waking, where my only awareness is that I would love never to leave it, it's likely not dependent on thoughts and feelings about performances. It is truly wonderful. Story 128. For those who believe there is nothing after we die, consider this: nothing cannot exist, as it would then be something. What if we return to our source, the energy we were part of before birth, and somehow create an afterlife based on our beliefs during life about what that afterlife is? What if everyone, regardless of their beliefs, ended up being correct? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.